Okay, so welcome everybody and welcome Jane. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to hearing your flower stories, we call them. First, let me introduce myself. For anybody that's not met me before, my name is Sarah Estelle Turner. I'm the founder of the Essentially Flowers Diploma in Flower and Vibrational Essences, which has been running since 2011. And I'm really happy today to welcome Jane Harris to share her story. Now, Jane was one of the very first people to come on board the diploma back, was it 2011?
It was 2011, yes, the roundabout June time. But I think I was in touch with you before then while you were formulating your diploma.
It was the very first people that I spoke to who expressed an interest, and you kind of patiently waited for the actual doors to open. So I'm really happy that to be able to share all of these years later. So what is it, 9 years at the time of recording?
Yeah.
Where you are now in a very different life. But anyway, we're going to talk about that today. So let's just start at the beginning. Would you tell everybody about yourself?
Well, I'm Jane Harris. I'm the owner of and the founder of Sanctite Essences, and I am part owner or co-founder of a new business that's being fledged this year called Magenta Events, with another wonderful being, basically. But that hasn't been launched yet, so my main business is Sanctite Essences. I'm a healer, I'm an empath. I'm a flower essence practitioner, I'm a Reiki practitioner, and I'm also an IT project manager. So I come with fairly grounded energies as well that come into that. But first and foremost, I'm a flower essence practitioner now. That's my journey now.
It's nature, isn't it, that called you and helped you to transform. So I think
absolutely
that we have, which is unique for everybody,
yes.
Obviously is always going to be your ally. So it's very beautiful that we're able to share that and what it really means, because most people have heard of flower essences, or if they haven't, they have some idea of what they might be. And we tend to, even people like yourself and myself, we can tend to think of them as bottles on shelves rather than things that actually become part of us.
Oh, yeah.
One of the wishes through these talks that we can actually start to ground that in what it really, really means to work with nature. So in order to help other people understand how that was for you, would you share what your life was like back in 2011, maybe before you started to take flower essences in a committed way?
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was actually before then. It was in 20. It's been creeping up. So my background is I'm a senior. I was a senior IT project manager for a very large global blue chip company. And we were going through some changes at work, and I was popped on a project which ultimately I ended up being signed off from work for 3 to 4 months, basically through stress. Now, I didn't take anything at the time because I knew exactly what it was, and I don't believe in taking other medicine or allopathic medicine, or if I can change my way of looking at things. And I found that during the time that I was off, I spent most of my time in my garden. And also was the journey of doing Reiki. So I trained as a Reiki practitioner I did my level 1 during that time. And it was through Reiki really that opened up the possibilities of working with flowers and or doing something complementary, and flowers just kept jumping out at me because I realized that over time I've always looked at flowers they've always been around me. I've lived in some most amazing countries and seen the most amazing plants, from very hot countries to not so hot countries like the UK. And I have to say, when I first started, I was guided to look at the batch flower remedies and look at the course associated with that. And because I realized that I have about 9 books about the batch flower remedies in my bookcase, which I didn't know. To this day, I can't tell you why I've had them. I've had them since I was in my early 20s. They went to India with me, and there were essences for children, for women, for animals, as general essences. But did I open them up? Did I read it? No, they were just there. So someone up there or around me had put that implant in me. And it was through conversation with a friend of mine that who pointed out to her, and she's a very dear, she does know me very well, who said, Jane, you're a Gemini. You like to look at lots of different things, not just at one specific range. And obviously your lovely course came into my mind at the time, and I was reading about it, and I thought, it's on all sorts of things here. It's about different ranges, it's about colors, it's about immersing yourself in, you know, all sorts of ways, how you can mix and match with things. And for me, that was really important, you know, to be able to work with colors and essences. But I have to say, when I thought, how on earth can someone teach me about the essence of a flower over 12 months? How's that going to keep me focused? I mean, they're flowers, you know. So I started off being quite skeptical about how this was all going to work. You know, the first module came through, and I thought, oh, okay, right, maybe this is going to be a bit harder than I thought it would be. And that's how my journey started. And it taught me, it's taught me immeasurable things, really. But at that point, it was about, what did I have in my garden? What flowers were growing in my garden at that point in time? And I realized that my garden had an awful lot of Hypericum, St. John's wort. And when I read into it, because that allowed me to look into that, of course, the angel flower, that's about healing, that's about, you know, nurturing yourself. And I spent hours out there immersed in my garden with this beautiful yellow flower. So solar plexus, you know, your emotions. All this I learned through you. I knew about the chakras. I knew about them because I lived in India for 9 years. But to how I could pull all these threads together and make a complete wholeness was just wonderful. Now we're here 9 years, 10 years later, still doing it.
Well, these things do stay with us. They do. And however we go on to grow them, because when you work with nature, it will work with you in a nature type way. It will see. It will bud, it will bloom, and it will have seasons as well, because that's how it works. So, yeah, you become your own flower, you become your own tree, however that works for you. So yes, it's really good to be reminded. For me, not I don't know. It's just really interesting and very, because I know your story, but hearing it again, I'm thinking, wow, yes, of course, I understand now how all these pieces have come together. So could you say, in a couple of, if you were to pick out 2 or 3 things in your life that needed support at that time, because you've shared the story, the background, how did you, Jane, need support at that point? What was lacking in your life?
Well, I think at that point in time, when I was signed off for work, I was a person that never said no. I took everything on board because I was seen as this very capable person. It was very much ask Jane and she'll do it. You know, they always say ask a busy person to do something, and so it allowed me to start to say no and be okay with saying no. I also found that I became more me. So I have, again, bookcases full of books, full of esoteric books, things about all sorts of things, you know, whether it was flower essences, whether it's about the runes, whether it's about astrology, because as a person, I'm fascinated with anything alternative or different. And as a Gemini, I need to be convinced that things work, because otherwise, you know, it doesn't make sense to me. So what this allows me, and has allowed me ever since, is that I was always worried that people would judge me by what I had in my bookcase, you know, that I wasn't normal, I think is the word. I wasn't normal at school. I was always somebody that supported the underdog, or stood up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves, and ultimately was, I don't know, at school, sent to Coventry in England, which meant basically I wouldn't be spoken to for days on end by the girls at my boarding school, because I'd stood up for someone less strong than they, from a bullying perspective. But now I don't basically give a damn about what people think about what's in my bookcase, because that is me. That's what makes me, you know, Jane, the person that I am. And actually, do you know what? Nobody has said anything. They've just gone, oh, you've got an interesting bookcase, and then start taking books.
Had you, over the course of your life, which I think is normal, and I think many of us do this, had you kind of like complied with people around you or aspects around you and started to just dim the real you?
I think yes. I think, although I could say that at school, maybe I didn't. You know, I have a very dear friend from school, and she actually said to me not so long ago, Jane, you've always been that. You've always been who you are. I just see it more now, which is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think with parents, I'm the oldest, and I never wanted to upset anybody, so I would do something not to upset them. So yes, I think I did.
You've been a peacekeeper.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Very much a peacekeeper, very much somebody who wants to help everybody and save the world. Well, you can't save the world. It's impossible to save the world. But you can do your bit. But yeah, I would say.
All these things are good, and of course we all need to become those peacekeepers in the way we're supposed to be. But the missing part almost is that if we don't have the peace inside ourselves, then as we emit those peacekeeping things to others,
yes,
we are draining ourselves on some level, because it's not coming from us, it's coming from a push or a,
yes.
You know, many women nowadays understand that completely, that they grow in a way that hasn't honoured their own being, and it's not our fault. I think we need to culture that we've been brought up in. So let's talk about now how your life is now. So it's been changing quite a while, yes. And you're becoming more and more of you. But tell everybody about your life now.
Well, during the diploma, I opted to take redundancy from my work, voluntary redundancy. Unfortunately, I couldn't leave there and then. I had to stay for another 2 years to finish a project that I was involved in. Essences worked really hard with me there, because there was some pretty negative male yang energy going around, and if anyone could create havoc, they were, because I think there was a lot of underlying things going on that shouldn't have been going on, but that's all in the past now. So Essences, I worked with on that. I made my own and basically did a consultation on myself and came up with my particular essence for that point in time. The reason why we wanted to do that was Tony, my husband, and I wanted to move to France. to move overseas, and we happened to be in France at the time when we made that decision. We moved with our 2 cats, so essences were used copiously on 2 cats in the back of a car, driving 14 hours in total from when we left home. And they arrived being very vocal, one of them, but very calm. So, Marvin essences were just fantastic, and constantly use those with the animals from my customers now. And once we arrived in the south of France 7 years ago now, and we started our business, my other business that I work with Tony on, not my flower essence business. But my driving force was to come down here to do my business, what's calling me from my heart. But I was also very aware that we needed to get some quick money in and to start building. And, we've learned over time, and I know we talk about this constantly, women should have numerous streams of revenue coming in. It's the feminine way of doing something, not just the masculine one job, one life. Well, my life's been a bit like that, really. So essences walk my path. I have a bottle with me now. Dancing in a New World is with me at the moment. Yeah, with an added bit of gold thrown in for good measure, in case there wasn't enough to go through my body. And I'm spending more energy because now 7 years, it seems to be a magic number, I think 7 years, and I'm going to start, reducing this masculine business with my husband, where I'm involved, and building up La Sanctite more often. So I work with, my cards, I work with my essences, and I do my Reiki on things. And it's I have you, and I have the essences to thank for this, because I don't think we'd be here, to be honest. I don't think I wouldn't have noticed. Oh yes, I've also got you to thank for 2 cats as well. So they've been on our journey. Unfortunately, as you know, we lost one it'll be 4 weeks ago, a month ago on Monday. But it's all connected. All these are connected. But I think the underlying reason for flower essences and working with them is bringing in you being aware of your life, living your life how you dream to live it. And we're not saying it's going to be easy. Nothing's easy. We have to work at things. It's not just going to arrive in your lap. But it makes things easier if you're working from the heart on doing something.
Something that pulls us forward all on its own.
Absolutely.
Even when we think it's not, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So your business, La Sanctite, means sanctuary, doesn't it? It's the French.
It does. Yes, it is. From what I understand, I did a bit of research, and it's only research, and it could be wrong, but many centuries ago it used to be called La Sanctite. Then it became Le Sanctite, became masculine, a bit like Notre Dame, really. And I wanted it to go back to the feminine again, to where it all started from, from Mary Magdalene way back when. So it's bringing in that feminine energy. Not, I do need to say this, it's not to dismiss masculine energy, because we need a balance. We need to have masculine and feminine. But we've either gone one way or we've gone the other way, and we now need to try and find this balance, because we all have a place in this world to work together, whether you're male or female.
And what I love about it is, as well, is that you've retained that caring energy that you spoke about at the beginning, the thing that asked you to speak up for your friends at boarding school, yes. The part you that used to say yes. So you've kind of like got clear about why you were saying yes, and you've started to say no when it's not enough, but you've held on to that core energy, because we all have that embedded in us. We just need to recognize it.
Yes.
So, and taking a long, committed journey, well, it doesn't have to be long necessarily, but a committed journey with flower essences definitely helps us to own who we are. So, thank you, Jane, for sharing about the journey. I think it's a really, really beautiful journey, and my wish is that it will help lots and lots of people. You've already mentioned a few things about what you loved about the diploma, which when you took part with us. What was your favourite part?
Oh, what was my favourite part? That's a really hard one, because I had lots of favourite parts. I think it was looking at how colours and essences work together. I think that I suddenly realised how colour was so important, whereas we live in this in our little bubble, don't we? And we look at flowers and we look at colours and we don't really take much notice of it. But it allowed me to really look at a colour and how that made me feel. I think that to me was one of my favourites, yeah. And learning about all the different ranges, and because there are hundreds of different ranges, and there are more coming out, as we know. But I've realised that there are certain ranges I connect with quite deeply, and others not so much. And you know, the moonflower essences is a beautiful range of essences, but is a gentle. To me, they are a gentler form of healing. On the opposite side, the mirror image of that for me is the Australian bush essences, which is a real, well, I mean, just saying Australian bush essences, it says moonflower essences, Australian bush, it says it all really, but they are equally powerful essences. And then in the middle, which I work with the Healing Herbs batch, I work with the moonflower essences, I work with Australian bush essences, and I work with the Lila Devi Spirit in Nature, which is fruit and vegetables as far as I'm saying, and they are, you know. So I think I'm covered, and then I have the odd one or two thrown in, and, you know, being part of, you know, through the essences, being part of groups, being part of other like-minded people's energy, creating some amazing essences, you know, dancing in a new world.
We've gone on to do that.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's lovely to hear what really has spoken to your heart. So as we say goodbye, do you have any final words of wisdom for anybody who's listening and going, I want me?
Okay. Final words of wisdom. Oh, blimey. It's a journey. We all are works in progress. And anyone who says that they're absolutely perfect emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, you're not. There's always going to be something there that needs working on. And I think, and probably you need essences more, but for me, my journey is continuing. It's 9 years in the making, you know, and it's not an all or nothing. I think what I want to say to people is if you have a calling to be a complementary therapist in whatever form, you don't need to do that 100%. You can work alongside other fairly mundane life streams, like work, like, you know, in offices or shops or factories or any other kind of form of driving, taxis, you name it. But you can do your own heart-centered business alongside that. And something else very quickly that I learned from another incredible human being who's actually an Indian astrologer. He was a yoga instructor. He did a particular part of yoga. And he used to travel 45 minutes to go and do this class. And he used to do it twice a week. And one person used to turn up. He said, and I used to go home and I used to think, I'm not making any money out of this. I'm not doing, is this really worth it? And suddenly he said, I woke up and thought, maybe that 45 minutes is just for that one person, to help that one person. So I'm of that same opinion, that if just one person you help, you've done your job. That's what you're here to do.
You can go to sleep at night and...
Absolutely. Don't give up. Just don't give up.
Yeah. And it looks different for everybody. So what a beautiful way to finish, Jane. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. I'm pleased that really we found the perfect time to do it. Yes. Thank you. I really, really hope that it's inspired lots of people to follow their hearts and just keep going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.